Hello and welcome. My name is Robin Henkes. I'm the game director of Albion Online, and I have the very distinct honor today to host Peter Newman, the author of our very first Albion Online novel. Yes, we've been working on a novel in which we hope to expand the lore of the world and give you an insight into in more detail into the factions and what makes the world of Albion go. We chose Peter for this task because we really liked his work. He has had his debut novel, The Vagrant, coming out earlier this year.
Yeah, that's right. It came out at the end of April.
And you've already secured a sequel?
Yeah, so the sequel is out April next year, and they've literally just signed me up for the third book in the series. So I'm feeling really quite happy with life at the moment.
Very good, very cool. So we're very happy to have secured Peter to work on our book. Can you tell us a little bit about the book, actually?
Yeah, certainly. So one of the challenges of writing an Albion book is that Albion as a game doesn't follow a standard fantasy narrative. There is not one overarching story, one great evil that has to be fought, and then everything goes back to normal. It is a game that, of course, that has hundreds and hundreds of stories, and that the players are all making their own. So when I was writing the book, what felt natural to me was to take a group of characters who are in the shoes of the players, experiencing Albion as the players would, and going on journeys, 3 different journeys, but as the players would experience them.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about the journeys that they do experience?
Yeah, certainly. So I should probably mention a little bit about the characters as well. So there's 3 principal characters, and each of them have a kind of a subcast around them. And all of these characters are either running away from something from their old life, or they're reaching out for something in a new life. So the first of these characters is called Tia, and she has had a pretty tough life in the old world. She didn't really like that life. She's made a lot of mistakes and enemies, and for her, going to Albion is a chance for a fresh start and to be a better person than she was. And also a chance, not just for her, but for her family. And she wants to make them better people too, and they aren't always in agreement. They maybe feel they're fine as they are, but it's quite keen for her to make a difference in their lives too. And then you've got a lieutenant in the Royal Navy, and he has been thrown out of the Navy basically for things that he's done. And he's in a very different situation. He was quite happy in his old life, but now he's been forced to make a new one, and he doesn't really know who he's going to be yet. And there are a lot of forces at play on him, like his father, for example, and other groups who are trying to lead him down paths that maybe don't suit him. That he's kind of reluctantly following it, but he's got pulls to go in different directions. And then lastly, we've got Prince Randall, who is actually being hunted. He has done some things he shouldn't have done. He's being hunted down by the Royal Army, and he has fled to Albion, but quite deliberately. He's got an agenda, he's got plans, and he's trying to unravel some of the mysteries of Albion.
Okay. So can you maybe tell us a little bit more about what kind of things these characters do throughout the story? Who do they encounter?
Right, okay, so again, I was trying to capture the player experience here. So one of the first challenges that they have is actually they've arrived with nothing. So how are they going to even survive their first few days? So getting their hands on, critical tools, equipment, a place to shelter, all of that kind of stuff. Also making their first alliances, because one of the things in Albion, of course, is that for the majority of players, they won't play alone, they'll play in guilds, and each of those guilds will have an identity and will have a role in the world. And for the characters, it's finding that role. For some characters, they might be joining guilds. Which guild are they going to join? For other characters, they want to make their own path and make their own guild, and that has its own challenges. How do you convince people to join you? What are you going to do? So there's that side of things. But of course, there's also exploring Albion. And it's a mysterious place. It's also a dangerous place. How are you going to survive? And Albion, what's cool about Albion, of course, is that it has its own groups that exist already within that world. When you're reading about the protagonists in the book, I want it to feel like you're watching a player kind of go through the game. And that if I played Albion and then I read the book, that it feels familiar. Like, oh yeah, I remember that kind of thing happening to me. And I remember the first time I did that for myself. Obviously, at the same time, we want to tell a compelling story and make it fun and all that. But yes, to capture that spirit of Albion in the book, both in terms of what they experience, but also what does the world feel like? How is it? the locations they go to, the kind of enemies they have to face, and the kind of challenges they have to get past.
So what was your inspiration for writing this story? I mean, obviously we came to you and said, this is the world of Albion, this is how it works, these are the factions that live
Yes.
there. But what was the point where you decided, okay, this is the story that I'm going to tell? What was the inspirational?
Well, there were lots of inspirations, really. So one thing is, you had all this material. So I'm looking at all of the factions, and some of them are sparking ideas in my head. And also that you have a certain level of detail for these things to exist for a game. But then for writing a novel about it, you need to go much deeper to really understand, what is the history of all of these groups? What is the history of Albion itself? How have all these things interacted in the past? And why do they do these things? So there was all of that side of things. It's a bit like if someone gives you half a jigsaw and says, make the other half.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we had lots of ideas and we had some of that written down, but you really had to pull it all together and...
Yeah, so making a coherent narrative so if you come up with an idea for one faction's background, how's that going to impact on the other faction?
Yeah.
And what have they all, they haven't been existing in vacuums for the last 1,000 years. They've been either making friends with each other, fighting each other, drawing up lines and saying, well, don't cross that, and of course someone will cross that, and then what happens? So yeah, all of that was a lot of fun. And going back to that kind of jigsaw idea, so you have like a jigsaw piece where half of it is quite defined because it has to fit with this, but the other three sides you can do anything you want with. But at some point they've got to meet up with this other bit of the jigsaw over here. And actually in some ways that's quite liberating because what you quickly come to is an option where actually there are only three really cool options here. Which one do I like the most? So in some ways it kind of focuses the writing, makes it easier. One of the joys of this project was that you said to me, would you like to play the alpha? And I said, yes, please, I do want to play it. And the two sides of that really, that my own play experience was really exciting and gave me a lot of ideas for the book. But also the community playing the alpha, because Albion's got very active community that talk to each other and that get involved and that try to do really cool things en masse as groups. And yeah, that inspired me in and of itself.
One of the things we gave you as part of the task also was that we gave you a list of player names who had achieved something throughout the alpha, right? And we basically said these are people we've noted from the community, and we thought it'd be cool if they could have a part in the book.
Yeah, so this is one of the coolest things because I didn't want there to be a book over here and a game over there. I like the idea that if you're going to do a multimedia thing, that they relate and they mesh with each other. So yeah, this idea that you've got people in the alpha who have in some way distinguished themselves, either by something really hilarious or embarrassing or by being brilliant. The idea that some of these deeds, these legendary deeds, can get into the book is brilliant. So yeah, there are people who are characters from the alpha game that will be in the book, either as characters that interact with the book characters or as people who were just mentioned in passing, like, wow, did you hear about this guy? And I love that. I love that idea. And that these two things relate. And also that things in the book may well come in some form to exist in the game, whether that's just like a cool piece of kit that you can get for your own character as well. So that relationship is something that really, really excites me.
So would you say it's fair to say that the community has driven the book?
To a degree, yeah, because some of the things that they've done and got excited about are going in there. And so, and bits of the community exist in the book, quite literally.
Yeah.
So.
And I think I'm really excited about that part as well, because that's something I would love to look into for future projects, to expand this aspect more, to involve the community more. Yeah,
totally. So this idea that, so if we think about the book is set, if you like, in a way around the alpha time. It's set, say, a few months before the players will start playing the game when the game finally launches. So I really like the idea that, that what people do in the beta now could be starting to form the stories of future Albion novels.
Yeah, I mean, we'll obviously observe the beta closely and look for opportunities. Then we'll watch closely as the novel launches. We'll see how well it's received, and obviously look into further expanding the narrative and the world of Albion.
Yeah.
Is there a particular aspect of the lore that fascinates you that you would like to expand on beyond the novel?
Yes, totally. So one of the things about this book, is looking at making your mark, setting up maybe your initial guild experiences and also guild trials, and how do you get your own land in Albion? And then what I'd like to explore further is, okay, let's imagine for a lot of players, they will establish themselves, and that's all very well, but then how do you hold on to what you've got? And how do you expand on what you've got? And maybe it's okay in the short term for guilds maybe to exist side by side, but then there comes a point maybe where you want that, or they've expanded into an area that's going to stop your expansion. And that relationship of kind of betrayal and alliance is something that I think is really cool.
Yeah. And I mean, there is also the opportunity to explore into the even deeper mysteries of Albion.
Yes. So that's the other thing, is kind of some of the factions within Albion have really ancient rivalries and histories. And there are things about why the world it is, and maybe also some things which are mysteries that would be better for Albion if they were never unlocked. That of course the players are going to unlock, because that's fun. And looking at that in future stories would be great as well.
Yes, I think so too. Thank you very much, Peter. It's a pleasure having you here.
Thank you.
You can get Peter's novel at the beginning of the next year. Look forward to it. We're very excited about it.